to episode 2 of the 85 Honda Sabre Cafe conversion. So this week we're going to be installing the clip-on bars that I got in the mail the other day from Woodcraft Racing. These are really nice clip-ons. They cost about $140 a pair, and they're the split type, so you don't have to pull out the triple tree to put them on. You can just install them right there on the fork tube, no problem. Makes them easy to take off too if you ever need to do any maintenance on the actual clip-on or replace a bar if you crash, God forbid. I've also got some other electrical components that showed up this week. The starter solenoids here, a new key switch is here. When I bought the bike I had a key for it, but it didn't fit anything, so evidently that wasn't the key for it. Anyway, we're going to try to fire this thing up. I got the air cleaner box all pulled off, the slides all move okay. We'll find out, I guess, if the float bowls are alright and the needle and seats actually hold when they do fill up with gas. So I'll get a little gas going in here a little bit later on in the video. We'll get some coolant in the cooling system, make sure that's all good, and connect up the battery and push the button and see what we get. So let's start out by getting these clip-ons installed and getting my controls back on there. You know, there's a lot of clip-ons out there available on eBay and other places that are made in China, and you can pick those up for $40 to $50 a piece. I'm not going to trust my life and all of my control to a made in China part. Maybe they're okay, maybe they're not. You know, I just don't trust them. That's why I chose Woodcraft. I got looking at their stuff they sell on eBay too. Well, you know, some people sell their products on eBay. Anyway, I ended up getting them off the eBay site from someone else, and I really like the way they're designed, and they make racing products for motorcycles, so you know that it's going to be quality and safe. That's, you know, stuff that's built to last. I'll give you a little close-up of what's going on here with these. They're two-piece, and they're really beautifully machined. They're wonderful little pieces of machine work. Well worth the $140. And since they're you know, the split type, you can just put them right around the tube like I mentioned before. And I've got one installed here already. It's a little bit loose, but putting them on is really just about this easy. You just have access to the Allens and get them in place and get the screws started in there. And something you need to pay attention to when you do this is to tighten everything up nice and even and leave the same gap on each side of the clamp, because they won't close all the way. That's how they clamp and stay tight. So as you tighten them down, you want to make sure that you keep the gap on this side and the gap on this side of the actual clamp the same. So let's rotate this around a bit. I'll get these tightened up just a little. I'll show you how the bar goes in there. Pretty simple installation there. And the nice thing about that is I can just install my controls on the bar separately and then go ahead and put the bar into the clamp just like this, and there it is. So I just slide this onto my controls and put it on there. Now inside here there's a little locator pin inside each one of these to keep the controls from twisting around on the handlebars. So I need to measure where that is and then drill a little hole in here accordingly. I can get that measurement off from the old bars. So that's what I'm going to do next. Take the old bars, measure how far from the end that hole is, what size it is, drill a hole in here, and do that for both sides, and then I can get all my stuff mounted up and adjust these just into a rough position for now, and then I'll be able to move the bike around a whole lot easier, because right now it's a pain in the butt. You know, I have no way of steering it, so almost tipped over on me the other day. That wouldn't be any fun. Okay, let's get started drilling these bars out. Here's the stock handlebar, and we're looking at the right side where the throttle goes. So let's measure in millimeters from the center of that hole to the end. And as you can see right there, I think you can see that, 160 millimeters, 16 centimeters. Now, you probably should not assume that that's going to be the same for the other side, and it's not. The other side is a little different. It has different controls. That's 170 millimeters to the end.
So it's about a 3/16 hole, I think. So I'll go measure that on the bars, get that on the drill press, and drill those holes. Let's do the right bar first. That was the one that was 160 millimeters from the end. Go ahead and get a measurement here going on that. Got one of these nice little automatic center punches. These are really handy. Nice little spring-loaded dealie. Measure twice, drill once. 160 millimeters. And now let's mark the other one. That one was 170. That marked from the very end here. And put a prick punch mark there. There we go. Now let's chuck those up here in the drill vise. Get that hole centered as best we can here, left and right. I can check that with a ruler easy enough. These bars measure about 22 millimeters, though I need to have my center punch hole lined up at about 11 millimeters. There we go. Now this drill press, even though it's an inexpensive drill press, has a nifty little laser sighting device on it. So where the crosshairs meet is where the drill will end up. It's pretty handy. Works pretty well. So there, I'm lined up. And bring this down, it should be right on the hole. Yep, let's drill that hole. One down and one to go.
Okay, here's the two bars. This one is the one at 160 millimeters, so that's the one for the right side here for the throttle. And I did notice earlier that the little alignment tab that keeps this from rotating, it's supposed to go in this hole, it got bent. Somebody at some point in time shoved this onto a bar and didn't pay attention to where it was located, or they bent it on purpose. I don't know which, but I need to straighten that out before I can put this together. Alright, I got that little tab straightened out. As it turned out, it broke off and I just bent it up, used some tin snips and made a new tab basically, which is okay. It still goes on and lines up just fine. That little bit of movement didn't affect the throttle. It still works alright. So now we'll get all this stuff back together and put the screws back in, and then we'll get this in the clamp. Okay, let's slide this on carefully, being careful not to scratch off the lovely black anodizing. Snug this up just a little bit. We'll carefully put it on the clamp. And there we go. It's mounted up. Something to pay attention to after you mount it is making sure you can get at all of the hardware to tighten everything up. And I can still reach the bolts back here, and I can still reach the bolts here, and the bolts for the lever. So now I'll go ahead and tighten this up in just this rough position for now. We can always move it a little more later. Everything's mounted up and in a rough position for now. This looks good enough to get started with. When I reach out, my fingers easily go over the clutch and brake levers. Okay, throttle, all that works good. I can reach all the controls fairly easily, all the buttons, things like that. And as far as the angles go like this, there's a couple things to pay attention to. Of course, just how comfortable it feels when you're on here and leaning into it. I mean, if it doesn't feel right, if it feels twisted one way or the other, move them a little bit. But my rule of thumb with stuff like this is to just put your hands out there loose and see where they like to just be in a neutral position. And if you notice, right here, this just feels comfortable and neutral to me, and my knuckles line up parallel with the bar. So that's about right. If it was like that, that wouldn't feel right. That would be weird. So this is about right. Then there's also tank clearance to think about. And my gas tank will probably be right about there. And the only time you're going to be cranking the thing like that is in a parking lot or moving the bike around in your driveway. But something to consider when you're moving it around. I have had setups in the past with Clubmans where I could only move the handlebars like this. It's a real pain in the arse when you're just trying to push the thing around in the garage. So there we go, those are mounted, and now we can get to what to do about all this stuff up here where I'm going to put my instruments, and also all this cabling and brake line stuff up front. Let's take a look at that. So it's pretty obvious that this is not gonna fly. This is a little weird, this nasty loop right here. So I suppose I could get custom length brake lines made or see what I can find. They're probably out there for race bikes, shortened brake lines. The other option would be to move this down a bit, but I would like to just get shorter lines. What I can do in the meantime is loosen up this banjo fitting right here and let this come up and loop around like that. That won't be so bad. Same thing here, I can get a bigger loop in it. As far as the throttle controls go, that loop isn't so bad because it'll be sitting here underneath the instruments once I get those all mounted up. And the headlight's going to go in here someplace, so if I really wanted to, I could cut these and tailor them to a specific size, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Just going to see if I can get the bike running next. Let's move on to that. See if this baby will fire up when I get some gasoline in those carburetors. Okay, after much farting around with some goofy electrical issues, I finally got this thing cranking over. I've got some gas in the carburetors. There's a fire extinguisher nearby, just in case. Got to be smart about stuff like this. I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm going to try cranking it over, seeing if it fires up. She wants to go. Wants a lot of choke. Okay, I think what probably happened there is I ran off from the fuel that I squirted into the intake, so probably the needle and seat valves are a little flaky. Not sure as I got a lot of fuel into the float bowls, but I think I'll try squirting a little fuel down in there one more time and give it one more shot. Okay, I just squirted a bit more gas into the fuel line and it overflowed, which means that the needle and seat valves in the carburetors are not closing properly, or the floats are stuck. One way or the other, there's some gas in there now, so let's try firing it off again and see what happens. That's it, I'm out of battery. Well, at any rate, I know it'll fire and run. It's got spark, so that's the good news, I guess. Well, I like the direction that I'm taking with this tank. It's looking like I wanted it to look, but what I'm finding out is it's pretty difficult to keep all these glued together pieces together. And I've got a lot of sculpting to do on this, so what I think I'll do is try to find a big solid chunk of EPS foam to work with. It was kind of hard to find actually at the hobby store. All they had was these sheets, so I'll have to see if I can source that out somewhere. But in the meantime, I've made some progress here, got my clip-ons on. I can start working on the instrumentation, get the tack and speedo up there. I'd actually like to get a little analog water temperature gauge going too. I kind of like the idea of that. and I can start working on the seat and cleaning those carburetors. That's going to be fun. Taking those things off is a bit of a chore on these bikes, but that'll be for the next video, and until next time, I'm just going to have to keep on hacking at this gas tank. See you then.